Hello. This is Pastor R.C. Blakes welcoming you back to Bible study. Yes, I am your pastor, and I'm excited about it. Now, please invite some others to come in and to be a part of our discussion in the Word of God today. I have something today that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, actually. It's, I guess you could say it's something that irks me, and I guess it irks me because it irks the heart of God. And I'm sure when I mention it, many of you will share my sentiment. I want to talk about critical people. The curse of critical people. I don't know. It's something about people that are always critical, just always. It's always something negative. It's always, a put down of others. It's always, you're zooming in on the less than positive aspects of a whole scenario. It's something about those kinds of people that it really just kind of gets on my nerves. It gets under my skin, because in no one's life is it all bad. And for you to be a person that is so twisted and probably even broken to the point that all you can do is lock in on the bad aspects of a person, there's something wrong with you. And there is something wrong with you. And you're going to need really seriously to lock in with God, and probably more than likely find a great therapist or two or three to help you to adjust your focus. Because none of us should be people that are always and only critical. I mean, if you want to sit here and criticize me, I don't come on here trying to be an orator. I mean, I mess the English language up on here quite often. Sometimes I even know better, but for the purposes of emphasis, I do what I do. I say too much, I take too long sometimes to get to my point. All of that. But you know what? This is who I am. And if you can't see the value in me for all of the idiosyncrasies, well, I'm just not your guy. And there are some of you that are watching me now, you are excessively critical. And just to be fair and to be, honest, I can be a very critical person. I used to be extremely critical, but it was never for the purposes of diminishing another person. When I was extremely critical, it was for the purposes of reaching a certain standard. And so I would be very critical of people that worked on my staff, people that worked with me or whatever, until I learned that excessive criticism does not produce better production. It only stresses the individual out. And so then I became a better leader, right? And I realized this: in any given situation, you can either be critical or you can be helpful. It's an opportunity for you to break a person down, especially if they have respect for you, or it's an opportunity for you to build a person up. Well, I soon learned that it's far wiser to invest yourself into building people up rather than tearing them down. And so I want to talk about this today. I guess you can see this is something that I feel passionately about. And it's because critical people are hurting a lot of people. You are emotionally, when you are a critical person, you are emotionally disposing of people prematurely that have not finished the assembly line process. And here's the irony: nor have you finished. You're still getting better. But many times, your unnecessary, excessive criticism, you are assassinating the souls of people midstream. They're not what they were. They're not what they're going to be, but they ran into you and you stalled them. You assassinated them. You aborted their process with your negative mouth. Now, a critical person is someone who frequently finds faults and flaws in others or in situations. Often highlighting mistakes or deficiencies in a negative, watch this, non-constructive manner. And this behavior is typically characterized by negativity, judgment, and a lack of empathy. And usually, people that are very critical are the same people that need a lot of mercy. But you forget that you've not always been where you are. And so it's the low self-esteem in you that makes you bully someone that you think is beneath you. Now, there's such a thing as constructive criticism. Constructive criticism, on the other hand, is the practice of giving feedback intended to help someone improve. It focuses on providing specific, actionable suggestions in a supportive and positive manner, aiming to encourage growth and development without belittling or discouraging the recipient. You know, here's kind of like the difference. The person that is just critical for no reason usually jumps in at the spur of the moment. Oh, that's not right. You didn't do this right, and you got this wrong, and they have no suggestions for how to get it right. The person that is constructively critical will usually wait until after the fact, unless it requires an immediate assessment. They usually wait until after the fact, and then they choose their time and they choose their approach to say, now, I noticed you did X, Y, Z the other day, and, I was thinking about it. I think a better approach might be to do it this way. And why don't you try doing this? And then why don't you try doing this? And then why don't you try doing this? They'll lay out a whole schedule, if you would, a whole menu of things that the person can do to improve, because the aim of constructive criticism is to help you improve. It's really coaching. While critical people only aim to hurt, to wound, to break. Now, here's a fact. The only way to constantly criticize others is to believe you are without fault. Man, I see some of these people that's just criticizing folk, and a lot of you are criticizing people about things that you can't even do. It's like me sitting there, well, like all of America, I suppose, the United States. It's like us sitting there criticizing these quarterbacks on Sunday morning, and I got a situation in my shoulder that I have to be careful how I throw a towel across the room. And a guy like me will sit there and be critical of, he should have thrown it harder, he should have threw it straighter, he should have threw it at a better time. We are usually criticizing people for doing things that we can't even approach. Because the only way to constantly criticize others is to believe that you are without fault. I don't chime in on the downfalls of people. I don't have that much confidence in my flesh. And my history dictates that I have no room to judge another. So while everybody else is bumping their gums about this one did that and that one did this and this one needs to be done, this needs to happen to that one and that needs to happen to this one, I sit in my corner quietly, enjoying the mercy of God, the grace of God that keeps me every day. And I pray for those who have been caught in untoward situations, because but for the grace of God, there goes your boy. Now look what the Bible says here in Romans 12:3. Only way to constantly criticize others is to believe you are without fault. Romans 12:3 says, for I say through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think. When you're criticizing others, babe, you're self-deceived. You're thinking more highly of yourself than you ought to think. You're thinking that you're better than these people, and you're not. Now, their issue might not be your issue, but you have an issue. You have some things that are criticizable, if that's a word. I just made it up if it's not. You have some things that can be criticized. Your issue may not be theirs, but you have an issue. He says, he that is every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith. The second fact for those of you who are critical people, when you are critical of others, you will sentence yourself to the same judgment that you exact. So the same way you're critical of me and the same judgment that you have over me is the judgment you're going to be judged by. Now here's something to think about. I want you to hear this. As I was pondering this thought, I just jotted this down. And I believe it to be true. I believe this to be true. Listen to this very carefully. Critical people mostly criticize those they think are beneath them. The problem arises when the people who are above them begin to judge them with the same judgment they judged the people that are beneath or they perceive as being beneath them. So while you're critical and you don't give grace or mercy or opportunity to those who may not be at your level yet, you don't realize that while they may not be at your level, you're not at somebody else's level. And you're wondering, why is it that the people that are above you won't let you in and won't help you out? And you're not realizing that it's the same judgment that you have for those that are waiting on you to let them in and to help them out. And so while you're thumbs down on people that you could otherwise help, you can either criticize them or you can help them. You are opening up over your life a judgment that those who are supposed to let you into the next level of life will put thumbs down on you, because the same judgment that you exact against me is the judgment that's going to be exacted against you. Matthew chapter 7, verses 1 through 5 reads like this: Judge not that ye be not judged. For what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, the beam is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. Judge yourself. If you want to judge somebody, criticize yourself. Be self-critical to the point of empowerment and improvement. Look what James 5 and 6 says. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that ye may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. See, you and I are little fake judges. You're a little fake judge. You ain't got you have no right, what's the word I'm looking for? Jurisdiction to be around here judging. But while you think you're judging, the true judge is standing at the door judging you, giving more grace to those that you're judging, but judging you. And then based on what I just said, you have no right to be around here judging nobody, being excessively critical of others and all that with no aim to help. Man, go sit down somewhere. Romans 14 and 4 says, Who art thou that judgest another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Yea, he shall be holden up, for God is able to make him stand. When you judge him, God props him up because he's not your servant. Now let me shift gears here, and let's look at what I call 7 toxic consequences of being a critical person. Are you a critical person? Are you a critical person? I just jotted 7 things down. Number 1, critical people, wherever you find critical people, you will also find a trail of damaged relationships. A trail, a long trail of damaged relationships. Constant criticism strains relationships with friends, with family, colleagues, and it can lead to resentment, mistrust, and emotional distance. Always something negative to say? You never find anything good about this person? Damaged relationships. Colossians chapter 3, verse 21 says, "Fathers, provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged." How do we as fathers provoke our children to anger? Always criticizing. Always criticizing. And I used to be that guy. I would like to think it wasn't to the greatest extent, but it was too much. Thinking that criticizing my children is what was going to get them to comply to my values, my belief system, right? Wrong. The more you criticize your children, the further away they want to move away from anything that you value. And when you are a critical parent, father or mother, you are damaging your relationship with your kids. You're damaging if you're a critical pastor, that every Sunday, all you can do is stand up and tell the people about what they're not doing and what you don't like and how tired you are of all of this here. Well, you won't have to be tired long because they're not going to be there with you long. You're damaging the relationship. Listen to what Wayne Dyer said. He said, people who are critical tend to feed on the imperfections of others. And why do you feel the need? Why do critical people feel the need to feed on the imperfections of others? They feel the need to feed because their self-esteem is lacking. And they feed that lacking self-esteem, or at least they think they're feeding that lacking self-esteem by bringing others down. But you're damaging relationships. Everything you observe doesn't need to be said. You don't need to correct everything that's wrong about the people in your life. They may have gotten it wrong. You don't need to articulate that in this moment. Shut up. Just be quiet. Let's see. If you look in James chapter 3, James chapter number 3, verses 5 and 6, it reads like this: "Likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell." When you don't have control of your mouth, when you don't know how to shut up and be quiet and stop criticizing, you will burn all of your relationships up. You'll be sitting there talking about people. They ghosted me. They did not ghost you. They left you because you are critical, you are negative, you are toxic. This is why you don't have friends. Somebody had to tell you. It's not the enemy. The enemy is your enemy. No, it was your mouth. It's your critical nature that has emptied your relational cupboard, and nobody, even though they love you, nobody can stay in your life in a healthy way because you are too critical. You damage relationships. Number 2, critical people generate low self-esteem in others. You generate low self-esteem in others. Frequent negative feedback erodes the self-confidence and self-worth of those on the receiving end, especially when they honor you, love you, and respect you. This makes them feel inadequate and undervalued. You know how many, okay, let's just deal with it. Do you know how many people today in their adulthood are struggling with self-confidence because they had parents that humiliated them, only talked about what they couldn't do, what they got wrong, how they missed it here, how they missed it there, and now here as full-grown adults, they can't find the self-confidence to even try to do the things that God put them in the earth to do because they had a toxic parent or two that emptied their self-esteem with a constant barrage of critical analysis. Not critical analysis as in, exceptional cerebral process, but critical analysis in the sense of everything they analyzed about you was negative. Proverbs 12:18 says, the words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Now let me ask you a question. In your relationships, in your encounters, are you bringing healing? Or are you piercing like a sword? Just constant. Please, man, if I give you access to me, please don't come to me with negativity. Please don't come to me criticizing, talking negative about people or others. If you talk negative about me, I'm gonna pretty much get you straight, on the spot. I wouldn't advise you do that. But, I don't want to hear all this negative stuff. Like a lot of times I talk to wives about husbands or husbands about wives, and all you got to talk about is just what's wrong with them. Why did you marry them? Why do you still want them if there's nothing right with them? No, many times that's like a demon in you that's just seeking to subjugate this person with a negative barrage. So the person gets caught up in the cloud of this negativity and can't really see their true value or worth. Emmett Fox says criticism is an indirect form of self-boasting. Colossians chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. Colossians chapter 4, verses 5 and 6 reads like this: walk in wisdom toward them that are without, redeeming the time. Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man. Why do you need to know how you should answer every man? Because the way you answer a person can have an impact on their soul. They may never see themselves the same again if you don't use your words the right way. I tell the story, and I've shared it with you all, of how many, many years ago, there was a young man in the church that was a very faithful worker in the church, and he was one of my sons. And man, one day I come back to my office and the guys huddled in the hallway, they just snickering and giggling and everything. I'm like, what's up with that? And then, so-and-so, he's stinking today. He need to take a bath. He need to use deodorant. I said, did y'all tell him? Did y'all tell? Oh, no. So y'all gonna stand and talk about him behind his back, but you haven't prayed for the words to tell him to his face, right? So I said, go call him. And while I was sitting there, I said, now, Lord, how am I gonna tell him this without, leaving a severe impact on him? And so he came in, And I said, well, I want to tell you something. And ain't but one way to tell you, and that is just to tell you. And and I looked him in his eye and I said, Doc, you're stinking. He started laughing. I started laughing. I said, you stinking, Doc. You are stinking. And you know what? He laughed his way out the office. I laughed him out of the office. And he never returned to the church stinking again. Right? Because you got to make certain that your words are seasoned with salt, and that, watch this, you drop those words at the right time with the right temperament. All right, number three, toxic consequences of being a critical person. You damage relationships. You lower the self-esteem of others that love you and probably are many times depending on you. Number three, you increase conflict. Fastest way, ladies, fastest way to get your husband to not cooperate with anything you're trying to do is to be critical. Just always criticize. Never compliment, never recognize what he's doing right, just criticize. And for the record, that goes both ways. You want to shut a woman down, just be critical. Just be overly critical. You ain't going to do nothing but increase conflict. A critical person often generates conflict and tension, as their constant negativity can provoke defensive reactions and lead to frequent arguments. Dale Carnegie said, any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, but it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. I love what Proverbs 15:1 says. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. You say the wrong thing at the wrong time, in the wrong way. Proverbs 26:20 says this, where no wood is, there the fire goeth out. So where there is no talebearer, the strife ceaseth. So where there's no criticizer, where there's no negative voice, the strife will cease. Because when you are excessively critical, you increase conflict. Right? You increase conflict. You know, like I've been in situations where my approach is always diplomatic and respectful. I try my best to approach people in a way that I know I would respond favorably if somebody approached me. You know, some people, their approach is to go in guns blazing. Yeah. Especially like if you're in a situation where somebody has to do something for you and it's business or something like that, you going in guns blazing and you're going to prove that you're going to muscle them and you're going to make them do what you want them to do. Well, a lot of times that backfires and people prove to you, I ain't got to do what you want me to do. And in fact about it, I ain't going to even do what I can do to help you, because your mouth is increasing conflict. And then you get somebody that's a little more diplomatic that says, well, I respect the fact that you're doing an amazing job and this is not an easy job. And I also know that my problem was not caused by you, but somewhere in your system, in your company, something happened. And all I'm asking is, can you help me? You'd be amazed at how that will work. Just giving a person a compliment, you're doing an amazing job. I appreciate you for even your temperament and taking the time. Could have been X, Y, Z, as opposed to guns blazing. Everybody ain't gonna respond to that. Everybody ain't gonna be scared of you huffing and puffing, talking about you gonna blow down the house like the big bad wolf. A lot of this critical stuff is just increasing conflict. You're constantly critical of your grown children, and you're wondering why you can't get a relationship with your children and your grandchildren, where your children control your grandchildren, and your children don't want to be bothered with you because every time they come around, you're criticizing their lifestyle. Now, granted, they may be living a lifestyle that can be criticized, but you are the parent. You are not the judge. You are to love them on whatever level you can love them and keep the bridge. Don't blow the bridge up. Keep the bridge intact so that when they grow out of whatever it is they're in, they can make their way back to you. But as long as you're critical, you're burning up the relationship. You're destroying the relationship, and you're increasing conflict. They're going to show you that I'm grown and I don't have to listen to you, and I don't have to be around you to have you constantly pouring this negativity into me. They're going to show you better than they can tell you. Number 4 is isolation. When you're a critical person, you're going to create isolation. You're going to be isolated from people. People are going to isolate themselves from you, because being overly critical results in social isolation. People may avoid the critical person to escape your negativity, leading to loneliness and a lack of support for you. Some of you don't have anybody that you can call on and count on because you're always criticizing. And see, now, this is something you got to remember as you age. I just turned 60, right? I still can't believe I'm 60 years old. Wow. Whoa, my God. But as you get older, you don't need to become more critical. You need to be nicer. Because you're gonna need some young folk to kind of hang around and help you at a certain point. And old or not, if you're a person that has a spirit that does not agree with these people, they're gonna let you figure it out for yourself. Some of y'all are isolated because of your mouth. You don't know what to say. You don't know when to say. In fact, some of the stuff you be trying to say, you don't even have a right to say. You just need to be quiet and mind your business. Proverbs 21:9 says, it's better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. Let me tell you something. If you're a critical wife, at a certain point, a man's going to get tired of all of that. I don't care how much he loves you. You just, a man's going to get tired of that. Okay. You ain't got to listen to me. I've been married for 30 years happily for no reason. I don't know what I'm talking about. Don't listen to me. You know what you talking about. You know you ain't been able to make you can't even spell relationship on the paper effectively. But I don't know what I'm talking about. A man is not going to sit around in no house listening to you just yap and criticize all day long. You ain't got nothing good to say about this man. Why are you up under the man? It's a reflection on you. Number 5, critical people create negative work environments. Do I ever know about this? Always criticizing, always finding the negative, always finding what's wrong. In professional settings, in ministry settings, a critical person can create a toxic environment, reducing team cohesion, dropping morale, dropping productivity because of their mouths, just constantly. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 29 reads like this: do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. Frank A. Clark says, criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish a man's growth without destroying the roots. That's when that criticism is constructive, right? Galatians 5:15 says, but if you bite and devour one another, watch out that you are not consumed by one another. You get a critical person and you drop them on the team, and they offend somebody else, and before you know it, that person is at this person, and now you got the people that's with this person against the person that's against them, and now the people with this guy over here, and you got one person that's overly critical that has destroyed the whole team. You got to learn. Now, this is something that I've struggled with in my leadership. It's that toxic empathy in me, I suppose. You got to learn, leaders, to dismiss the bad apple sooner than later. Better for you to call that one person and say, now look, I don't need you on the team, and let them get mad and go on, than to have them poison the whole team with their critical nature. Number 6, critical people usually live with a lot of personal stress and don't realize that they're bringing it on themselves. You can't be so negative towards others and not get the backlash of that. The act of constantly critiquing and finding fault can generate stress and negativity in the critical person's own life, affecting their mental and emotional well-being. You're struggling because you're so negative. All you think are negative thoughts about people. All you have are negative comments about people. You think you can live your life like that and not be emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually impacted by that? Your very nature invites demonic play in your life. Listen to what the Bible says in Proverbs 18:21. It says, death and life are in the power of the tongue. So however you choose to use your mouth, you're inviting death or life. You're giving life or death to others, but you're also inviting that same death or life back into your own experience. And then number 7, wherever you find a critical person, there's stifled creativity and growth. You can't be critical and creative at the same time. Continuous criticism stifles innovation and growth, both for the person being critiqued and for the critical person themselves. Fear of judgment can hinder risk-taking and creative thinking. Isn't this true in the church? That people are afraid to even try because if they try and they don't get it right, you got some condemnatory, judgmental person that's, cracking the whip. Now, let's talk about this, and then I'm done. How to overcome a critical nature. And I might go and dig into this deeper. I may go and dig deeper into this. But right now, I'm just going to give you this little outline that I jotted down. Letter A, how do you overcome a critical nature? Letter A, work on true self-esteem so you stop believing you have to put others down to elevate yourself. That's why you're critical. See, you haven't looked beneath the surface, but the root that's producing this fruit of your critical nature is that you're really struggling with low self-esteem, and you believe that you got to put other people down to make yourself look big. You got to make other people look small to make you look big. So you got to diminish them to magnify yourself. You don't have to do that, babe. Letter B, how do you overcome a critical nature? Empower people around you to check you, to tell you the truth. You got to take your friends and you got to let them know, hey, man, this is something I struggle with and I'm trying to get better, and I need you to pull my coattail when I'm falling off the wagon, so to speak. I need you to check me. Nobody else around me will check me. I need you to check me. If you see me becoming overly critical, even if it's of you, check me, saying, hey, man, you're doing it again. That's all you got to say. You're doing it again. And then you're going to know exactly what they're talking about, and then you can what? Course correct. You can make adjustments. Letter C, Walk in empathy, driven by the reality of God's mercy towards you. Be empathetic, not just for the sake of being empathetic, but be empathetic and compassionate based on the fact that you realize that it's nothing but the mercy of God that's keeping me. Letter D, hold yourself accountable to being a help to people, not a hindrance. Make that a standard. Make that a personal goal, that I'm not going to just criticize a person. I'm going to help people. I'm going to empower people. So sometimes the criticism is not even necessary. Sometimes it's just a matter of you saying, okay, I saw you do this. I think a better way to approach this is try this. Now you're part of the solution, not a part of the problem. Now you're healing, you're not hurting. And then letter E, catch yourself when you slip and apologize immediately. You find yourself overly critical of a person, catch yourself and say, now, you know, I just want you to know that I've been really working on this, just being overly critical, and I don't want you to take that personal. That's really about me. I apologize for even coming out of that bag. You're doing a great job, X, Y, Z, pray for me. But you got to catch yourself and hold yourself accountable. And so my prayer is that some of this that I've said today really, really, really resonates with you, and that, you know, you can see where you can improve. And you have a mind to attack this particular area, because you're bigger than this. You're better than this. God's called you for more than this. So I just want you to know I love you, and I'm praying for you. You're on top. You're going higher. I'll see you next time.